The volcano is the very first lesson that we do in a session, and part of what is happening in that lesson is that you're setting the stage for how all of the rest of the counseling is going to look. So this is differentiating what happens in talk therapy and what happens in neural network therapy. It's really critical that you get this right. So for that reason, this is actually the lesson that you're going to have to memorize and have it completely locked down, so that when you're teaching it in a video assignment to share with us that you've got the information, we are going to break it down and make sure that you do it, and perhaps even resubmit if those pieces are missing. So that means just watch it over and over again. There's an audio recording as well. It just gets the flow of the information into your head. It sounds and seems perhaps like there's little pieces that might not be necessary, but every single piece that we talk about here is important. So that very first session, of course, you're just getting to know the client. You're asking natural questions. You're using your personality to connect with their personality. So it means that you're authentic in how you're presenting, but you're really exploring with them. So why are you here? And what are the things that have happened? And I'll let the textbook make more sense out of in the conversation you have with your peers in class about how you warm up in a session and what things might be helpful to be able to structure that for a session. However, when it comes to the very end, what I want you to be doing is at the beginning of that session, you're saying we have 50 minutes together, and that's not a lot of time. And in that 50 minutes, I want you to get everything you possibly can out of this. So the very first, session, you're going to do more of the talking, because I need to figure out who you are and what's happening. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, so I want to figure out what things are really working well for you, and then I want to supplement that and figure out. So I'm trained to kind of keep watch for the areas in which I know that things are struggling. I know that there are some behavioral tools that could really help you work through this in a different way. So I'm going to do my part, you do your part. At the end, no matter where we are, at 10 minutes to the end of our session, so 40 minutes in, we're going to stop, and I'm going to get up to the whiteboard and I'm going to show you this lesson, because I want you to go home with something you did not have coming in. And this is where you're introducing to the client the idea that you can go and talk to your friends for free. If you're coming here, I want for you to be doing some work, and this means that every single session I'm going to teach you something. It might be on a whiteboard, it might be using an Etch-a-Sketch or a light bright. It doesn't have to be heavy and complex. This is probably the most complex lesson that we'll have, with the most complex homework. I'm going to get you to dive in and dive deep while you're newly excited about doing therapy, because of course, our motivational levels come and go, and we want to work with what those look like, so that we can get the most out of this experience. So at 22, I'm going to get up and show you this lesson. And so, of course, this is the part where you're diving into the lesson. I want your whiteboard to be something that is large enough for, this would be an example, of course. We're trying to do everything in a way that you can see. We have a whiteboard also on the wall here, but it's, if I'm doing video sessions, it's just not nearly as easy to access and for the client to see all of the information. So please spend some time on this. I would suggest actually working with one another to be able to set up your office space, your whiteboard, your everything else. Order really thick markers. You don't want somebody straining to try to figure out what it is you're drawing. You want them to flow with you in a really fun and easy way. So here I am, and I'm going to talk as though I'm talking to a client. So here's your volcano. You were born and absolutely nothing was in it. Freud used to talk about, we talked about the iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg, that's really what's going on that we can see in the conscious mind, and the rest of it is subconscious, of course, most of it, having just come from Antarctica, looking at the massive icebergs that were there and thinking about that 8/10 of that was still beneath the water is quite something. And that absolutely is representative of our subconscious mind. So we're going to use a volcano because they explode, and I think that makes them way cooler than icebergs. But for this purpose, we'll explain. If you imagine this lava line, what lies beneath it is what's in your subconscious. This is the story that you've experienced in your lifetime, the experiences that you've accumulated over the course of your lifetime. And what's above that line is your conscious mind, and that's the thing that you're actively thinking about. So when you were born, nothing had happened to you, so you had a completely and totally empty volcano. We want to think about an empty volcano or space as health and wellness and vitality and energy. But something happens in your experience, and let's just say it's that, a grandfather dies. So this thing falls down to the bottom of your volcano. And you can see children, actually, even when they have lost a grandparent or even somebody closer, that they'll bounce quite quickly. And part of that resilience is actually what's going on with this idea that this dense thing happens, but it falls to the bottom of the volcano, and there's all this other space there. So we're sad, and then we up and out of it. But for years and years now, we haven't really known what to do with the things that have happened to us. And so it sort of stays there as part of our collection of our story. And then something else happens, and it could be that, your dog gets hit by a car, which is, of course, another sad moment in time. And so we tumble down into despair. We'll talk more about the energy of emotion, but the emotions that we experience, of course, are in many ways fleeting at this stage of things, because they're just about that one specific situation of something that's happened. And then let's add up, maybe we were bullied in school a bit. Those take up a few of them. We could have, we had some fights with some friends. We lost some different things. Maybe we moved. More recently, of course, things like work and relationships all pile on. And bit by bit, our volcano fills. What happens here, if this was you, is that you begin to run across the top of your volcano. This is your way of keeping everything down. And so when we see somebody, when we look at the behaviors of somebody, and it could be sort of any of the isms, so alcoholism, drug addiction, we're looking at workaholism, it could be even working out too much. It doesn't have to be, even too much of a good thing can be a problem. It doesn't have to all be these critical negative things. It's just a coping strategy. For some people, it's dramatic relationships. They move from one to the next to the next. And what they're doing, you can see, there's sort of a frenetic pace. In fact, we see it in ourselves. When all of a sudden our pace picks up and we start to have more things happening, we will accelerate whatever those habits are that begin to run across the top of our volcano. Nope, it's fine, nothing down there, and keeping these things kind of below the waters or below the lava surface. So over time, what happens, of course, is that things begin to kind of get ugly and they start to explode. And so this is where we get called in. We're the therapist, we get involved in the situation, and we're sitting down. So we're going to be doing this job of being able to work with you to grab the things that have happened in your life, pull them up to the conscious mind. But instead of just leaving it there, we're going to do something about it and begin to empty this volcano. So as a therapist, you're going to go fishing. I'm going to go fishing in your volcano. I'm going to grab this thing that's happened way long ago, and I'm going to pull it into the conscious mind. When I pull that into the conscious mind, what happens is it is no longer stuffed and stored down in the subconscious mind. And so there's a sense of relief. There is a feeling that says, oh, I feel a bit better. I got some, it's not as condensed in there. And that registers as better. And relief is the feeling that we experience, which is where talk therapy can become tricky. Because we have talked about it, we brought it into the conscious mind. But the problem is, of course, we've talked about it, nothing else has happened. It's just a story that we've told. That relief happened. But by the time you get back home and back into your life, it just falls right back down into the little spot that was created for it. And it's all safe and sound, and that's the end of that. So nothing's changed. But you think, that felt good. I felt better for a minute. I felt some relief with this. And so you go and you decide you're going to grab another one of these things. So we pick a new one. We say, well, let's actually maybe talk about something more recent. And we pull this up and we talk about this experience that has happened in your past. And for that moment, and for that time, it's moved from the subconscious mind to the conscious mind. And for that reason, you feel the relief. But again, by the time you get back home, it makes its way back down. So this process can go on, and it can go on for quite some time, many, many years. It's time consuming, it's expensive, and more importantly, we now know that exploring these experiences in our lives for more than what is necessary to figure out what emotion was triggered or what series of emotions were triggered, and to make peace with it in whatever way that is. So what we want to do is look at the idea that making peace might be examining what this experience was and moving it from despair, maybe even just to anger, and leaving it there, or moving it from despair right up to appreciation, and doing that with each and every one of these experiences. But as we do that, we pull this experience into the present moment, have the conversation about it. That's part one. We give you then a piece of homework that's tailored just to you, to the experience, to our experiences in working through these types of events. And we give you that homework, and you go home doing the homework. And when you come back, you've made room in your volcano. We pick another one. So we take this piece and we pull it up into the conscious mind, and we say, okay, let's have a conversation about it. But then we say, here are the homework pieces that we think are best tailored to this particular one. It doesn't mean we will nail it each and every time. We may have to do a couple of different tries at working through this, but our job is to be able to match up the right piece of homework that you're going to go and do, and in doing so, get it out of your volcano completely. At the beginning, a little bit of space feels like a little bit of relief, but it's not that it does anything super great to your being. In fact, if anything, we've got a really good habit of backfilling. We're comfortable with our full, and so therefore we continue to go back to that state. But it doesn't take long for those tables to turn, and for each of these things to be able to begin to make a lot more space, and for that space to become addictive. Next thing you know, you're kind of coming into session saying, I've done my homework, give me the next. It doesn't matter if you want to choose the things that are at the bottom of your volcano. If we clear out this space, we've still made a lot of space in your volcano. If you are thinking about and just much more preoccupied with the things in your most recent past, which is perfectly logical, then let's make space there. It really makes absolutely no difference, and it's important that you know that. You may very well also just do the most recent stuff and then decide, hey, there's some more things in there I'd like to get to. Can we do that too? Any which way, if you think about space as the idea of health and vitality and wellness, about energy, about happiness. Energy and emotion are two things that will connect. We'll explain more about that. But part of what we want to see is an incremental rise in those energy stores, which equates as health and happiness. As we work our way through, we'll give you these homework pieces, and that's the end of it. But what we want to do in this next part, the most complicated part of your job, is going to be telling us what it is you want to talk about. We don't need to actually go through each and everything that's ever happened to you. And we don't need to do that because we just need to be able to build some skills in moving from despair to appreciation, in moving from anger to appreciation, from guilt to appreciation. Once we've built those neural pathways in the brain has got the blueprint. It knows how to begin to do that. Repetition helps us, so in future things that you talk about, you start to go, oh, I know where to go with this. I think last time this worked really well to help me shift my emotional state from this one to this one. And so you begin to file those memories from the past back into better feeling states, which of course helps you feel better and better. But more importantly, you are building the skill set to be able to deal with the here and now in a brand new way. So those things are happening, it's on the spot, it's on the ready. Those tools and resources are very clear, and they're practiced, and they're tools that you can use. So I want you to go home, I want you to take a stack of cue cards. I want you to go in and use the energy of emotion as the emotions that you will identify. We're going to talk more about those ones in particular, but for now you get the general idea of each of those emotions, just so we don't end up all over the map. There's lots of shades of emotion, so we'll pick those ones. So I want you to think, put these cue cards, whether it's your bedside table or just outside the shower. That seems to be a good place to think about things. You can take them with you to work in your purse or your backpack. It's important to have them nearby for the next, between now and the time I see you next. So I want you to take these cue cards with you wherever you go, or at least leave them at home in a place that they're super accessible. We're asking the question, what are the things that I want to talk about? What are the things that have had the most amount of emotional impact on me? Good, bad, or indifferent, they're just really strong memories. Your brain's going to go to work and figure out what those things are. So as you come to them, I want you to write on one side of the cue card the emotion or salient emotions involved in this experience. On the opposite side, a couple of words that tell us about what the experience was, because as we refer back to it, you don't need more than a couple of code words. So if you fell out of a tree and broke your arm and you know that it was a terrible time in your life, tree, arm, along with an approximate age. It doesn't have to be exact, but we do want an approximate age. We're going to lay these things out in order of appearance. This is if you have things that you want to talk about from way down low in your volcano right up to present. If you feel as though the things that you're dealing with, whether it's in your relationship or in your current life, are just the things, a lot is surfacing and a lot of it is at that surface level, what I want you to do is instead use each cue card to write the thing that's happening, that's causing the frustration or upset in some capacity. Do the same thing though. I want you to put, don't worry so much about the age because it's most recent, but I want you to put the thing that's happening and then on the opposite side, the emotions that it's triggering. These are going to, you're going to collect whatever it is that you've got, and at the end of the collection period, so if you're coming, maybe the day before you come back to the next session, I want you to put them in order of appearance from the least frustrating to the most frustrating, and we'll attack those in a different way.